The silence in the living room was so thick it felt like a weight, pressing Elara into her armchair. She sat frozen, her skin clammy and pale. Across from her, she could see her son, Lorcan, his shoulders shaking as he wept silently into his hands. He wouldn't look at her. Standing over them both, her shadow falling across the coffee table, was Seraphina. She held her smartphone up like a trophy, a cold, triumphant smile on her face. Elara watched, her heart a cold stone, as Seraphina's voice cut through the room. Your mother just admitted on camera that she is not of sound mind, Seraphina announced, her eyes fixed on her weeping husband. She's confused. She's not well. Ilara's own voice was a tiny shaking whisper. What are you talking about? Seraphina's smile widened, becoming terrifying. She took a step closer to Elara, leaning in. I'm talking about conservatorship, Elara. The word hit Elara with the force of a physical blow. I'll have control of everything, Seraphina whispered, her voice laced with the venom Elara had never heard before. The house, the bank account, all of it. By the end of the week. Seraphina leaned in even closer, her face inches from Elara's, her voice dropping so Lorcan could barely hear. And you'll be going somewhere safe, where you can't hurt yourself. I guess all your junk really is trash, after all, including you. Seraphina laughed, a short, sharp, ugly sound. Elara stared, her mind a blank, howling void. She was trapped. She had been outplayed. In that single, horrifying moment, Elara felt the last spark of hope die inside her. How did it come to this? How did a 68-year-old grandmother end up outplayed, trapped, and about to lose her entire life? To understand how she got here, and how she fought back to show who's the boss, we have to go back to the day it all began, the day her daughter-in-law stood on her lawn, surrounded by her most precious memories, and screamed. Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the sky over Greywater Point was the color of a fresh bruise. Elara stood at her own kitchen window, her knuckles white on the porcelain sink, and watched her life bleed into the lawn. The grass was wet. Her things were scattered across it, soaking up the cold November damp. A box of her late husband Ansel's books, their leather-bound spines splitting open to the sky. A stack of photo albums, the smiling faces of her son, Lorcan, as a child, already blurring behind their plastic sheets. And in the very center, sitting in a puddle of muddy water, was the small mahogany music box, the one Ansel had carved for her with his own hands the winter before he passed. Elara wasn't breathing. She was 68 years old, and she had never in her entire life felt so completely and utterly hollowed out. The back door slammed open, rattling in its frame. Seraphina, her daughter-in-law, marched onto the patio, a black trash bag in her fist. She was young, all sharp angles and restless energy, her hair pulled into a tight, angry bun. She didn't look at Elara. She just pointed at the soggy pile. I'm not letting that junk fester in the sunroom anymore, Elara, she announced, her voice as sharp as broken glass. It's a fire hazard. It's clutter. It's disgusting. Alara's hand went to her throat. The sunroom. That was Ansel's room. That was where he read. Those were his things. Before Elara could find a single word, her son, Lorcan, drifted out the door behind his wife, his shoulders slumped, his eyes fixed on his phone. He looked, as he always did, like a man waiting for a bus that would never come. Lorcan, Elara whispered, though she was only 10 feet away. He didn't look up. Seraphina scoffed, a tiny, sharp sound. She grabbed the box of Ansel's books and, with a grunt, hoisted it toward the industrial-sized trash bin by the curb. The books tumbled out, landing in the mud with a wet, final thud. "Seraphina, please," Elara tried, her voice cracking. Those were Ansel's." Seraphina dropped the box and whipped around. Her face, usually pale and modern, was flushed with a sudden, brilliant rage. She marched right up to the soggy pile, grabbed the small carved music box, and held it up, dangling it between two fingers as if it were a dead rat. "This?" she screamed, her voice echoing in the sudden, terrible quiet of the cul-de-sac. "This is junk. You live in a museum of dead things, Elara. We can't breathe. Evander can't even play. It's trash." And with that, she threw the music box. It didn't just drop. She hurled it toward the bin. It hit the side with a sickening crack of splintering wood and fell into the pile of wet leaves. The sound snapped something inside Elara. It was a sound louder than the yell, louder than the rain. It was the sound of the last thread breaking. Lorcan finally looked up, his eyes wide and vacant. "Seraphina, honey, maybe not that one." Seraphina spun on him, her fury redirecting. "You see, you always take her side. It's me or this horde. I am sick of it." She was crying now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pure, molten frustration. Elara just stared at the broken box. She felt the cold, the wet grass, the eyes of her neighbors peeking through their blinds. She felt the humiliation creep up her neck like a rash. But beneath the humiliation, beneath the grief, something else was stirring. A single, cold, hard spark in the ashes. She looked at her son, who refused to meet her gaze. She looked at her daughter-in-law, who was breathing hard, righteous and victorious. Elara said nothing. She didn't cry. She just turned, walked back inside, and locked her bedroom door. The war had been declared. And in that moment, staring at her reflection in the dark mirror, Elara vowed she would not be the one to lose. It had all started with an empty chair. 6 years ago, Ansel had passed, and the house at 42 Sigmore Drive had become cavernously quiet. The silence was a physical thing, a weight that sat on Elara's chest. The chair he always sat in, the one in the sunroom, gathered dust. For 3 years, Elara's life was a predictable gray rhythm. Gardening, a weekly call with Lorcan, and the agonizingly loud tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. Lorcan was her only child, her world. He was a junior financial analyst in the city, a title that sounded important but, as she later learned, was as fragile as a soap bubble. He had met Seraphina online, a woman who seemed, to Elara, to be made of polished glass and sharp opinions. The call came on a Tuesday. Lorcan, his voice thin and reedy. "Mom, bad news. The firm did layoffs. I was one of them." Elara's heart seized, not with fear, but with a sudden guilty hope. "He'll come home." "Oh, Lorcan, that's terrible. What will you do?" There was a pause, and then Seraphina's voice, muffled but clear in the background. "Just ask her, Lorcan. Stop stalling." "Well, Mom, that's the thing. Seraphina is pregnant. We just found out. And with the rent here, we were wondering if maybe we could come stay. Just for a little while. Just until I get back on my feet." His voice was that of a small boy, asking permission to have a cookie. "Just for a little while" became the motto of the house. Elara, starved for family, for the sound of footsteps other than her own, agreed instantly. She cleaned the guest room, put fresh sheets on the bed, and for the first time in years, she cooked for 3. The first month was almost nice. Seraphina was polite, if distant, and Lorcan seemed relieved. Then the baby, Evander, was born, and the house,
once too quiet, became a different kind of loud. It was a world of shrieking and monitors and the constant tap-tap-tap of Seraphina's laptop. She was a freelance graphic designer, and she worked from the kitchen table, her face illuminated by the screen, sighing heavily whenever Elara tried to make lunch. The little while stretched into 6 months, then a year. Lorcan could find a new job, but it was remote and paid less. They were saving for a down payment, they claimed. But Elara saw the boxes from expensive websites, the new phone for Seraphina, the designer stroller. They weren't saving. They were nesting in her home. The small invasions began. Seraphina reorganized the kitchen, moving Elara's pots and pans, labeling her pantry with a sleek black label maker. "It's just more efficient this way, Elara," she'd said, not looking up. She replaced Elara's simple lavender soap with a sharp citrus-scented foam that Elara hated. The first major battle, however, was over the sunroom, Ansel's room. "Elara, we need a playroom," Seraphina had announced one evening, holding Evander on her hip. "That sunroom gets the best light. It's perfect. We just need to clear out all this old stuff." Elara had frozen. "That," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "is my husband's study." Seraphina had rolled her eyes. "Elara, he's been gone for years. It's wasted space. Lorcan," she snapped, "tell your mother." Lorcan, staring at the TV, just winced. "Mom, she's right. It's good light. Evander needs the vitamin D." Elara had held her ground. "No." That was the first time Seraphina's politeness had cracked, revealing the hard, impatient core beneath. It was the first time Elara realized this wasn't a visit. It was an occupation. The house on Sycamore Drive was no longer a home. It was a territory, and every room was a potential battleground. Elara felt like a ghost in her own life, haunting the hallways while the new, vibrant life of Seraphina and Lorcan took up all the air. The loudest sound in the house, louder than Evander's crying, was the tap-tap-tap of Seraphina's keyboard. It was a constant, metallic drilling that started before dawn and often went late into the night. It was the sound of Seraphina building her future, and Elara was just an obstacle in the floor plan. The smell of the house changed too. The familiar, comforting scent of old books, lavender, and Ansel's faint pipe tobacco was steamrolled by Seraphina's world. Acrid coffee, citrus cleaning sprays, and the sour milk smell of the baby's bottles. The sunroom remained Elara's last fortress. She kept the door closed, but she could feel Seraphina's resentment radiating through the wood. Seraphina began a campaign of passive warfare. She started leaving helpful pamphlets on the kitchen counter. Senior living options, the benefits of downsizing. Elara would slide them, wordlessly, into the trash. Seraphina would complain to Lorcan, her voice just loud enough to carry from the living room. "I'm just worried about her, Lorcan. This big house, all alone. What if she falls? It's not safe." Elara would sit in the kitchen, her tea growing cold, her blood turning to ice. She wasn't falling. She was being pushed. Lorcan was a ghost, too, but of a different kind. He was a man made of apologies and air. He would leave for work in the spare bedroom and emerge only for meals, his face pale, his eyes avoiding Elara's. He was a buffer, and he was failing. "Mom," he'd say, catching her in the hall, "can you just try to get along? She's under a lot of stress. The baby, her work." Elara looked at her son, the boy she had taught to ride a bike, the boy who had cried on her shoulder, and she saw a stranger. "And what about my stress, Lorcan? This is my house. Those were your father's things." Lorcan would flinch, the mention of his father like a small stone thrown at his chest. "I know, Mom, I know. Just give it time. We'll be out of your hair soon." But soon was a word that had lost all meaning. The tension in the house was a physical thing. You could feel it in the air, a low-voltage hum that made your teeth ache. Evander, the toddler, was the only one immune, and he became the unspoken prize. Elara adored him. He had Ansel's eyes. She would read to him in the afternoons in a rocking chair, and for that 1 hour, the house was peaceful. But Seraphina watched. She'd stand in the doorway, arms crossed. "Okay, Evander, time to go. Grandma needs her quiet time." She would scoop him up, and Evander would wail, reaching back for Elara. Seraphina's smile was tight. He gets overstimulated. He needs structure. It wasn't about structure. It was about possession. Then came the incident. Elara had been sorting through some of Ansel's old work clothes, planning to donate them. The box was on the sunroom floor when Seraphina walked in, holding a steaming mug of coffee. "What is this?" "I'm just sorting," she said. Seraphina stared at the box. "Elara, this is mildewed. It smells." She nudged the box with her foot. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're hoarding." "I am not hoarding. I am remembering." Seraphina let out an exasperated sigh, a sound that said, "You are impossible." "Whatever." She turned to leave, but her foot caught the corner of the box. The coffee mug slipped. Hot, black coffee splashed all over the box, all over the floor, and all over a framed photo of Ansel on his boat. Seraphina gasped, but Elara didn't see remorse in her eyes. She saw irritation. "Well, I guess that settles that. It's trash now."
The coffee spill was a skirmish. The guest room war was the first real battle, and it changed the alliances in the house forever. The guest room was, in fact, Ansel's office. It was the one room Elara had kept exactly as he left it. His heavy oak desk, his maps of the coastline pinned to the wall, his books on naval history, and in the corner, a locked 2-drawer filing cabinet. This cabinet was Elara's one secret. It held all their important documents, the deed to the house, Ansel's will, their financial records. It was, in short, the brain of the house. Elara kept the only key on a thin silver chain around her neck, tucked beneath her blouse. Evander was turning 2, and Seraphina declared the spare bedroom, where she and Lorcan slept on a mattress on the floor, was toxic. "He needs his own room," she announced at dinner, not asking, but stating. "The guest room is the only logical choice. It's time to clear it out." Elara's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "No." The word was flat, final. Seraphina's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean, no? It's a room, Elara. We're living on top of each other. Lorcan." She snapped her fingers, and Lorcan, who had been pushing peas around his plate, looked up, startled. Tell her we need that room." Lorcan bit his fork down. He looked from his mother's stony, pale face to his wife's flushed, angry one. "Mom," he began, his voice placating, "she has a point. It's just stuff. We can pack it up, neatly. We can put it in the attic." "It is not just stuff, Lorcan," Elara said, her voice trembling with a cold fury he hadn't heard since he'd crashed her car in high school. "It is your father's office." "My father is gone," Lorcan suddenly shouted, slamming his fist on the table. The plates jumped. Evander in his high chair started to cry. "He's gone, Mom, and we are here. We are your family now. Why can't you see that? Why are you holding on to a shrine?" The words hit Elara harder than a slap. A shrine. He saw his father's life, his own history, as a shrine to be dismantled. Seraphina, seeing her opening, pounced. Her voice dropped, becoming sickly sweet, sympathetic. "He's right, Elara. It's not healthy. You're grieving, we get it. But it's been years. You need to let go. Let us help you let go." She reached across the table, as if to offer her Ansel's hand. Elara pulled her hand back as if she'd been offered a snake. "I am not grieving," she lied. "I am organized. And that room stays as it is. That is final." She stood up, her napkin falling to the floor, and walked out. The next morning, Elara woke to the sound of screeping. She put on her robe, her heart pounding a sick, heavy rhythm, and walked down the hall. The door to Elara's office was open. Seraphina was inside, wearing yoga pants and a tank top, her hair in a sweaty ponytail. She had already managed to pull all the books off one shelf. They were in a pile on the floor. "What?" Elara said. "Are you doing?" Seraphina didn't flinch. She just kept working. "What you won't! I'm making space for my son, since you refuse to be reasonable." "Get out," Elara whispered. "What?" Seraphina said, tossing a heavy encyclopedia onto the pile. "Get out of my husband's room." "It's my house too now," Seraphina yelled, finally turning to face her. "We live here. We pay. We contribute." "You contribute nothing," Elara snapped, the truth finally boiling over. "You live here for free. You eat my food, you use my utilities, and you have the nerve to throw away my life? Get out." Seraphina's face went white. Then she smiled, a slow, cold smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Lurkin was right. You're just a bitter old woman. Fine. Keep your dusty room." She stalked out, shouldering past Elara in the doorway. But as she left, her eyes flickered, just for a second, to the locked filing cabinet in the corner. It was a look of pure, unadulterated curiosity, and Elara knew with chilling certainty that this was far from over. The day after the fight over the office, a new, suffocating quiet settled over the house. It was no longer a Cold War. It was a ceasefire, and both sides were rearming. Seraphina stopped speaking to Elara entirely. She communicated through Lorcan or by leaving passive-aggressive notes on the refrigerator. "We're out of almond milk again." Elara, in turn, retreated. She spent her days in the garden, even as the weather turned bitter, or locked herself in her bedroom, reading. She felt the key on the chain around her neck, a constant, heavy reminder. The office door was now locked, and Elara had the only other key. Lorcan, caught in this suffocating silence, began to unravel. He looked thinner, paler. He developed a tic in his left eye. "Mom, please," he'd beg, finding her in the kitchen late at night. "Just apologize to her. Just try. We have nowhere else to go." "Apologize for what, Lorcan?" Elara would ask, her voice flat. "For protecting the one room in my house that hasn't been contaminated?" "Don't say that," he'd hiss. "She's the mother of your grandchild. And I am the mother of you, and the woman who is letting you live rent-free in her home." The argument always ended the same way. Lorcan would sigh, a sound of profound spiritual exhaustion, and retreat. Seraphina, meanwhile, had turned her sights on the attic. If she couldn't have the office, she would claim new territory. The attic was Elara's domain, a place of organized, labeled history. It held her wedding dress, Lorcan's baby clothes, Ansel's uniforms. It was hot in the summer and cold in the winter, and it smelled of cedar and thyme. Seraphina decided it was the perfect storage solution for the junk in the sunroom. "Elara," she said one morning, her first direct words in a week, "I need the key to the attic. I'm moving the sunroom boxes up there." Elara was pruning her roses. She didn't look up. "No." "No?" Seraphina's voice was incredulous. "What do you mean, no? It's an attic. It's for storage. You can't possibly tell me that's a shrine, too." "It is not a shrine, Seraphina. It is organized," Elara said, snipping a dead rose head with a sharp snap. "And I will not have you reorganizing it." "This is insane," Seraphina shrieked, her voice rising.
You're a dragon sitting on a pile of worthless junk. You'd rather your own son and his family live in squalor than move a single dusty box. This is not squalor, Elara said calmly. This is my home. You are a guest in it, and guests do not get to rearrange the furniture. That afternoon, while Elara was at the grocery store, it happened. She came home to a strange sound, a thump, drag, thump, coming from upstairs. Her heart, which she thought had run out of new ways to break, plummeted. She ran up the stairs, ignoring the ache in her knees. The attic door, a small square panel in the ceiling of the hallway, was open. The flimsy plywood ladder was extended. Seraphina, covered in dust and cobwebs, was at the top, shoving a box labeled Lorcan Grade School out of the way. "Seraphina!" Elara cried. "What are you doing? How did you get in?" Seraphina froze, her face a mask of grime and defiance. "Lorcan found the key. The one you thought you'd hidden." She pointed to a small ornamental hook by the linen closet where a spare key had hung, forgotten, for 20 years. "It's over, Elara. We are cleaning this house with or without you. We need this space, and we are taking it." She was breathing hard, her eyes bright with victory. And as Elara looked up at her daughter-in-law, silhouetted in the dusty yellow light of the attic, she saw something else. Behind Seraphina, stacked against the far wall, were 4 new large plastic storage bins. They were labeled, in Seraphina's perfect, sterile handwriting, Elara, mementos. She was being packed away.
The attic was a violation. Elara felt it in her bones. Seraphina had organized it, which meant she had shoved all of Elara's carefully labeled boxes into one dark corner, under a tarp, and filled the main, accessible space with her own things, out-of-season clothes, boxes of project materials, and baby gear Evander had already outgrown. The smell of the attic was wrong now. It no longer smelled of cedar. It smelled of plastic and Seraphina's sharp citrus perfume. Elara went up there once, saw what had been done, and came back down, her heart a cold, hard stone in her chest. She padlocked the attic door and put the key on the same chain as the filing cabinet key. Seraphina didn't say a word. She just smiled, a small, knowing smirk. Lorcan, meanwhile, had gotten good news, or at least it should have been good news. "I got it," he announced one evening, walking into the kitchen. Elara and Seraphina were in their usual armed truce, ignoring each other as they navigated the space. "Got what?" Seraphina asked, not looking up from her laptop. "The promotion, the one I interviewed for. It's a raise, a big one." Elara's heart leapt. A raise. A big one. This was it. This was the moment. They could finally afford their own place. She could have her house back. She could have her life back. She almost smiled at Seraphina. Seraphina, however, didn't look happy. She looked calculating. She closed her laptop. "A raise. How big?" "Enough," Lorcan said, his chest puffing out for the first time in months. "Enough for that down payment we were talking about. I saw a few new builds over in the Westlake area." "No," Seraphina said. The word was flat, cutting Lorcan off mid-sentence. Lorcan's face fell. What do you mean, no?" "I mean no. Westlake is too far, and new builds are junk. And why would we move?" she said, her voice silky. "We have a perfectly good house right here." Elara, who was washing a dish, put it down. The clatter seemed to echo in the sudden, tense silence. "What are you talking about, Seraphina?" Elara asked, her voice low. "We're saving money here, Lorcan," Seraphina said, ignoring Elara and turning her full attention to her husband. "Think about it. All this space. A yard for Evander. If we move, we'll be house poor. This is the smart move. We just invest in this place. Make it our own." Lorcan looked at Elara, his eyes wide with panic. He was trapped. "Mom, it makes financial sense."
You are not investing in my house. You are not making it your own. You are guests, and it seems your stay is over." "Is it?" Seraphina challenged, standing up. "Is it really, Elara? Or are you just scared to be alone again? At least we make the house feel alive. Lorcan, we're not discussing this right now." She grabbed her laptop and walked out. Lorcan stood there, a balloon that had been suddenly deflated. "Mom." "Don't, Lorcan," Elara said, turning her back. "Just don't." She knew, with a dreadful certainty, that they weren't planning to leave. They were planning a takeover. Later that night, Elara couldn't sleep. She went downstairs for a glass of water. As she passed the living room, she heard Seraphina's voice, low and urgent. She was on the phone, her back to the door. Elara froze. "I know, Manda, I know, but he's so weak. He'll never stand up to her. No, he's a total mama's boy." A pause. Alara's blood ran cold. "The house? Oh, it's perfect. Great bones. Just full of her junk. But don't worry, I have a plan. Yeah, she's old. How long can she realistically, hold on? Lorcan will get it all, which means I get it all. I just have to be patient or, help her realize it's time to move on. A year. I give it one more year and this whole place will be mine." Elara clapped her hand over her mouth, stifling a gasp. It wasn't about saving money. It wasn't about helping. It was a cold, calculated plan to steal her home.
The overheard phone call changed everything. The air in Elara's lungs turned to poison. Every good morning from Seraphina, every polite pass the salt, was now laced with venom. Elara saw her daughter-in-law in a new, terrifying light. She wasn't just impatient or entitled. She was a predator, and Elara was her prey. She was waiting for Elara to move on or be moved. The knowledge was a heavy, cold weight in Elara's stomach. She looked at Lorcan, her son, and saw him not as weak, but as a willing accomplice, a Trojan horse she had welcomed into her home. Elara's grief, which had been a soft, suffocating blanket, now crystallized into something hard and sharp, rage. But she was smart. She knew she couldn't fight Seraphina's fire with fire. Seraphina was young, loud, and ruthless. Elara had to be old, quiet, and smarter. She began to plan. She locked her bedroom door, not just at night, but all the time. She started eating her meals in her room, claiming she was not feeling well. She observed. She listened. She became the ghost Seraphina always accused her of being, haunting the edges of their lives, gathering information. The sunroom was Seraphina's new obsession. Since she couldn't have the office and the attic was now padlocked, she decided the sunroom would be Evander's playroom. "Elara, this is non-negotiable," she announced one morning, standing in the kitchen doorway while Elara tried to make tea. "The clutter in the sunroom is going today. I've ordered a playmat and a new shelf. They're arriving this afternoon." Elara just stared at her. "Those are Ansel's things. They are boxes. Boxes of mildew and sadness. It's unhealthy for Evander. It's unhealthy for you. I'm doing you a favor." Elara knew this was it. This was the line. She had to hold it. "You will not touch that room." "Watch me," Seraphina said, her eyes flashing. And that's when it happened. That was the day. Elara, in a panic, had tried to move some of the most precious boxes, the ones with Ansel's letters, his service medals, and the music box, into her own bedroom. But Seraphina was fast. She had been waiting for this. She had been hoping for this. As Elara carried a box, Seraphina blocked the hallway. "Give me that, Elara. You're going to hurt yourself." "Get out of my way." The struggle was pathetic. Two women, one old and one young, wrestling over a cardboard box of memories. Seraphina was stronger. She yanked the box, and it tore, spilling its contents. And then she just snapped. Maybe it was the year she had given herself. Maybe it was Elara's defiance. But her face, the one from the phone call, returned. "I am done," she screamed. "I am done living in your filthy past."
and she began to carry things, not to the attic, not to the garage, but out the back door and onto the lawn. She was a woman possessed, dumping Elara's life, Ansel's life, onto the wet grass. And that is when we came in. We are back at the beginning, Elara standing at the window, watching her life soak in the mud. Seraphina marching back and forth, dumping, throwing. Lorcan, a statue of cowardice. And Seraphina holding the music box, screaming, "It's trash!" and throwing it. The crack of the splintered wood. That was the moment Elara had been pushed. But as she stood there watching Seraphina, a new thought, sharp and clear as a diamond, cut through her shock. She isn't just throwing away my things. She is creating evidence. Elara watched her son, who was now recording his wife, not to stop her, but to what? Elara didn't know. But she knew her own next move. She turned from the window, went to her locked bedroom, and made a phone call. Not to the police, to someone much, much better.
The day after the yard incident, the house was as silent as a tomb. Seraphina, having spent her rage, was now smug. She had won. She had cleared the sunroom, the playmat was rolled out, the new sterile white shelf was built against the wall. The room was bright, empty, and utterly devoid of history. It was Seraphina's room now. Elara's things were in a neat pile by the garage, covered by a blue tarp, as if waiting for the trash collector. Lorcan, steeped in a shame so thick it was visible, had locked himself in his workroom, and Seraphina was letting him. She floated through the house, humming, making Evander organic snacks in her sunroom. But Elara was not defeated. She was processing. She was a general, surveying a lost battlefield, planning the next decisive battle. She had gone out, late, after the crack of the music box, and retrieved one thing. She had dug through the mud and leaves, her hands bare, until her fingers brushed against the splintered mahogany. She had brought the broken music box back to her room. It was in pieces. The tiny mirrored ballerina was snapped off its spring. The wood was warped, but the metal comb of the music maker itself seemed intact. She placed the pieces tenderly on a towel on her dresser. Then she began her own war, a silent one. Elara, who had cooked every meal since they'd arrived, stopped cooking. The kitchen, once her domain, was now a neutral zone she visited only for tea and toast, which she took back to her locked room. She stopped doing their laundry. She stopped cleaning the common areas. She stopped reminding Lorcan that the mortgage bill was in her name and needed to be paid from the joint account she'd foolishly set up. She simply stopped. She became a polite, silent tenant in her own home. After 3 days, the chaos began. The sink filled with dishes, the floor was covered in crumbs, laundry baskets overflowed. Lorcan, forced out of his room for hunger, stared at the empty refrigerator. "Mom, are we out of everything?" "I don't know, Lorcan. Are we?" Elara replied pleasantly, stirring her tea. Seraphina, furious, ordered takeout. But the small, daily comforts they had taken for granted, the clean towels, the stocked pantry, the very running of the house, all ground to a halt. Elara was the engine, and she had just turned herself off. "This is childish, Elara," Seraphina confronted her in the hallway. Elara was on her way to the garden, her new sanctuary. "This is my house, Seraphina," Elara said, not stopping. "I am no longer your maid." "You're trying to punish us," Seraphina accused. "No," Elara said, pausing at the back door. "I am just tired. I am a 68-year-old woman, and I am tired. You wanted to be in charge of this house? Well, here you are." She walked out and left Seraphina standing in the growing filth. The power dynamic, for the first time, had shifted. Seraphina had the sunroom, but Elara, it turned out, had all the real power.
and she was just learning how to use it.
The silent treatment wasn't just about punishment. It was about observation. By removing herself from the daily grind, Elara was able to watch her son and his wife, not as a mother, but as a strategist. She saw the cracks in their alliance. Lorcan, who had never learned to cook, was miserable. He lived on protein bars and cereal. Seraphina, who worked long, high-pressure hours, was now also responsible for Evander and the entire house, and she was failing. She was not a domestic person. She was a conqueror. She had no interest in the logistics of running the territory she'd conquered. The house was becoming a pigsty, and she was growing increasingly resentful, not of Elara, but of Lorcan. "I am not your mother, Lorcan," Elara overheard Seraphina hiss one night. "I can't do my job and watch Evander and clean up after you and your mother. When are you going to step up?" I'm working," Lorcan protested. "Tapping on a keyboard is not working. I'm bringing in the real money, and I am sick of it." The fight was raw, and it was beautiful. Elara, sitting in her room, allowed herself a small, grim smile. She hadn't broken them. They were breaking themselves. They had only been united in their war against her. Now that she had surrendered, they had turned on each other. It was time for the first phone call, the one she had made the night of the yard incident. She hadn't just called a friend. She had called her lawyer. But not just any lawyer. She had called Ansel's estate lawyer, a quiet, ruthless woman named Miss DeWitt. "Elara," Miss DeWitt had said, her voice sharp. "It's good to hear from you, but it's 9 p.m. Is everything all right?" "No, Agnes," Elara had said, "it is not. I need to change my will, and I need to know my rights as a homeowner." She had explained, in calm, simple terms, what was happening. She told her about the room, the yard, the overheard phone call. There was a long silence on the other end. "Elara," Agnes DeWitt finally said, "this is not a family dispute. This is potentially elder abuse, and their plan is horrifying." "I don't care what you call it," Elara said. "I just want them out. But I don't want to hurt Lorcan. Not permanently." "Lorcan is an adult, Elara. He has made his choice. Now you must make yours. The will is easy. We can change that tomorrow. But getting them out, that's tricky. They are tenants. Even if they pay no rent, you have to evict them. Legally." "Evict?" Elara's stomach turned. "Evict my son?" "Or," Miss DeWitt said, "we can make their life so uncomfortable that they choose to leave on their own. You said Lorcan is on a joint account." This led to the second phase of Elara's plan, the joint account. She had added Lorcan to it in case of emergencies after Ansel died. She had been paying the mortgage, the utilities, the insurance, all from her own savings, while Lorcan and Seraphina's paychecks went where? Elara didn't know. "Agnes," Elara said, "what if I stopped? What if I stopped paying the bills from my savings?" "Well," Agnes said, a hint of admiration in her voice, "the bank would pull from the joint account, and if Lorcan and Seraphina have their direct deposits going there, they would, for the first time, be paying their own way." So Elara did it. She transferred her money, every last cent, into a new private account. She left just enough in the joint account to cover the next mortgage payment, and then she waited. The first of the month arrived. Elara, sitting in her room, heard a shriek from the kitchen. It was Seraphina. "Lorcan, where is all our money? The account, it's almost empty." Elara heard the thump of Lorcan running down the stairs. "What do you mean?" "The mortgage, it came out, and the car insurance, and the electric bill, it's all gone." Elara picked up her teacup. The silent war was over. The financial war
had just begun.
The financial bomb had detonated, and the fallout was immediate. Seraphina and Lorcan were in a state of blind panic. They had, Elara realized, never once looked at the household bills. They had assumed Elara was just handling it. Now, faced with the actual cost of their lives, the mortgage, the high-speed internet, the gourmet groceries, the utilities, they were staring into an abyss. They hadn't been saving money by living with Elara. They had been spending Alara's money while hoarding their own. And now the bank had taken what was owed. You did this, Seraphina stormed at Alara's locked bedroom door, pounding on it with both fists. This is theft. You stole our money. Elara opened the door. She was dressed, her hair was neat, and she was holding a mug of tea. She looked, infuriatingly, calm. I did no such thing, Seraphina. I simply stopped paying your bills. The bank took what you owed, what we owed. After all, this is our house, isn't it? That's what you said. Seraphina's face went from red to white. She was speechless. She had been so busy trying to steal the house, she never bothered to read the mail. But my clients, Seraphina stammered. My business account, it was all tied together. That sounds like a you problem, dear, Elara said, and she gently closed the door. The satisfaction was brief, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. This was her son, her family, and this is what it had come to. But she held firm. Miss DeWitt had been clear. Do not engage. Do not negotiate. Let the consequences be the consequences. Elara was finally letting them. The house, already filthy, descended into a new kind of squalor. With no money for takeout, Seraphina was forced to cook, and she was angry about it. She slammed pots, burned food. The house smelled of char and resentment. Larkin, meanwhile, was a man possessed. He was on the phone constantly trying to what? Get a loan? Move money? He was frantic, and his frantic energy turned, as it always did, to his mother. He came to her not with anger, but with the old wheedling tone of his childhood. Mom, I messed up. We messed up. But I can't access our. We're broke. Can you just loan us some just until I get my next check? No, Lorcan, Elara said. She was in the garden, planting bulbs. She didn't look at him. Mom, please, Seraphina, she's talking about leaving, taking Evander. Alara's hand stilled. This was a new low blow. Using her grandson. Then you had better figure it out, Lorcan, because I am done. I am done being your safety net. I am done being your maid, and I am done being your hoard to be managed. My money is my money. This house is my house. You and your wife wanted to be adults? Be adults. He stared at her, this new, steel-spined version of his mother. He had no more moves. He walked away. But Seraphina did. Seraphina always had a move. Later that night, Elara heard a strange noise, not from the kitchen, from the hall. A scraping sound. Click, scrape. It was coming from Ansel's office. Elara grabbed the heavy iron fire poker from her fireplace and crept down the hall. The office door was open, and Seraphina was inside. She had a wire, a credit card, something. She had picked the lock. She was at Ansel's desk, prying at the one drawer Elara hadn't locked. No, Elara thought, not the desk, the filing cabinet. Seraphina was on her knees, jiggling a hairpin in the lock of the bottom drawer of the locked filing cabinet, the one with the key around Elara's neck. Looking for something? Elara asked, her voice like ice. Seraphina screamed, scrambling to her feet. I was looking for a pen. With a bobby pin, Seraphina? In a locked cabinet? In a locked room? Elara stepped into the light. You're looking for my will, aren't you? You're looking for the deed. You wanted to see how long you really had to wait? The mask was off. Seraphina's face was no longer angry. It was, for the first time, afraid. Get out, Elara said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The fire poker in her hand, combined with the cold, dead certainty in her voice, was enough. Seraphina, who had been so bold, so loud, now looked like a cornered animal. She scrambled backward, tripping over her own feet, and fled the office. Elara didn't follow. She walked over to the filing cabinet. The lock was scratched, the metal warped from Seraphina's clumsy attempts, but it had held. The key around her neck felt heavy. She knew with absolute clarity what she had to do next. The time for quiet, passive warfare was over. It was time for the boss move. She went back to her room, locked the door, and made her second phone call to Agnes DeWitt. Agnes, it's Elara. She just tried to break into my private files. She picked the lock to my husband's office and was trying to force open my filing cabinet. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Elara, this has crossed a line. This is breaking and entering. Even if she lives there, that room was locked. You need to call the police. No, Elara said. Not the police. Not yet. That's messy. It hurts Lorcan. It hurts Evander. I want a different kind of justice. What are you proposing? Asked Agnes, her voice wary. I want to give her what she wants, Elara said, a new, cold calm settling over her. She wants the house? She wants my money? Fine. I'm going to let her think she's winning. Elara, that's insane. What are you— Just listen, Elara said. I am going to apologize. I am going to give in. I'm going to tell them I'm confused and old and lonely. I am going to tell them I'm scared. And I am going to offer to sign a new document. What kind of document? Asked Agnes, and Elara could almost hear the lawyer's mind whirring. I am going to offer to sign the house over to them. On one condition. A long, stunned silence. Elara, you cannot be serious. That is the worst possible thing you could do. I'm not signing the house over, Elara said, with a hint of steel in her voice. I am signing a house over. I want you to draw up papers, a legal document, a new will, a new deed, whatever it takes. I want it to look perfectly official. I want it to say that in consideration of my failing health, I am turning over ownership and financial control to my son Lorcan and his wife Seraphina. I want them to have everything. This is madness, Elara. They'll take one look at it and throw you in the street. No, Elara said, because the document you draft is going to be flawed. Isn't that what you lawyers call it, a scrivener's error? I want a document that looks ironclad, but has a loophole, a poison pill, something that makes it completely, utterly invalid, something that when they think they've won will be their undoing. And I want something else. I want a camera, a small one. I want to record this signing. I want to record them accepting. There was another long, stunned pause. Then Agnes DeWitt laughed, a short, sharp, appreciative bark. Elara, you are a genius, a terrifying, cold-blooded genius. I'll have the papers drawn up by tomorrow, and I know just the error to use. The next morning, Elara did not come out of her room. She waited until she heard Lorcan and Seraphina in the kitchen, their voices low and sharp, arguing over the dregs of their bank account. She opened her door. She had not brushed her hair. Her robe was stained. She leaned against the door frame, projecting an image of a frail, broken old woman. "Lorcan," she called out, her voice a reedy, pathetic whisper. The arguing stopped. They both turned to look at her. Seraphina's eyes were narrowed, suspicious. Lorcan's were just tired. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked, taking a hesitant step toward her. "No, Lorcan,
Elara whispered, and she let a single, perfect tear roll down her cheek. I'm not. I'm so scared. I was wrong. I've been so wrong. This was not the reaction they expected. Lorcan rushed to her side. Mom, what's wrong? What's going on? I'm so confused all the time. And last night, Seraphina, dear, she said, looking at her daughter-in-law with watery, repentant eyes, you were right. I am hoarding. It's a sickness, I think. I'm not well. Seraphina's expression flickered. The suspicion was still there, but it was now overlaid with a new, greedy interest. This was the confused old woman she had been waiting for. It's okay, Elara, Seraphina said, her voice dripping with fake honey. We know you're stressed. I don't want to be alone, Elara whimpered, clutching Lorcan's arm. You were talking about leaving, taking Evander. Please, don't. I can't be alone. Not again. She was laying it on thick, and they were eating it up. Lorcan was patting her back, a look of profound relief on his face. His mom was back, the weak, needy one he could save. We're not going anywhere, Mom. Good, Elara said, because I want to make it right. I called my lawyer. Seraphina's head snapped up. Now she was paying attention. I don't trust myself with the finances anymore. It's too much. And this house, it's too big for me. I want you to have it. She looked from Lorcan's shocked face to Seraphina's ecstatic one. Seraphina was vibrating with the effort of trying to look sympathetic and not like she just won the lottery. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying I want to sign it over to you and Seraphina so you can take care of me, so I know I'll be safe, so you'll stay. Elara swooned a little, and Lorcan helped her to a kitchen chair. I have the papers. My lawyer, Agnes, she's bringing them over this afternoon. She said it was the right thing to do to protect the family. Seraphina was practically drooling. She knelt in front of Elara. Elara, that is so generous. We of course we will take care of you. We would be honored to. Her eyes were shining. Elara wanted to gag. Good, Elara whispered. Good. She'll be here at 3. We can sign, and then we can be a real family.
The hours leading up to 3 p.m. were the longest of Elara's life. Seraphina was a different person. She was kind. She made Elara tea. She fluffed the pillows on the living room sofa. She even, with a pained expression, picked up some of the trash that had been accumulating. Lorcan just wandered the house, dazed, as if he'd been pulled from a car wreck. He seemed relieved. The war was over. His wife was happy. His mother was safe. He didn't see the bars of the cage he was helping to build. Agnes DeWitt had dropped off the package an hour earlier. It contained the thick stack of official documents and a small state-of-the-art nanny cam disguised as a digital picture frame. Put this where it can see their faces, Elara, Agnes had instructed, and read the poison pill line out loud. Make sure they hear it. Make sure they agree to it. Elara placed the frame on the mantelpiece, angled perfectly at the coffee table. It displayed a scrolling series of bland, generic nature photos. It was perfect. At 2:58 p.m., the doorbell rang. It was not Agnes. It was a mobile notary, a young professional-looking woman that Agnes had hired. "I'm here for the signing?" she asked. "Yes, yes, come in," Elara said, playing the frail host. Seraphina and Lorcan were already seated on the sofa, as if waiting for a coronation. The notary set up her briefcase on the coffee table. "Okay, so I have the documents here, prepared by Ms. DeWitt's office. It's a quitclaim deed and a transfer of financial power of attorney. Heavy stuff." We're ready," Seraphina said, her voice trembling with excitement. Elara sat in the armchair opposite them. The hidden camera in the picture frame had a clear view of all three of them. "Now, I just need to..." "Wait." Ms. DeWitt flagged a specific clause here. "She insisted I have you, Mrs. Vance," she said to Elara, "read this part aloud, and have you, Mr. and Mrs. Vance," she said to Lorcan and Seraphina, "verbally agree to it. It's unusual, but she was very insistent." "Of course, anything." Seraphina waved her hand. Elara took the paper. Her hands were shaking, but this time it was with adrenaline, not fear. She read the line, the poison pill Agnes had so brilliantly crafted. It says here, "This transfer is conditional and contingent upon the continued positive and non-hostile cohabitation of all parties to be reviewed and validated at the sole discretion of a third-party arbiter, Agnes DeWitt, upon any report of conflict. Should this condition be breached, the entire agreement is rendered null and void, and all assets revert immediately to the original owner." Do you understand that?" Seraphina and Lorcan glanced at each other, a brief flicker of something, but greed won. "Non-hostile? Of course, we love each other," Seraphina gushed. "It just means we all have to get along, right?" "We agree, 100%. Right, Lorcan?" Right, yeah, we agree," Lorcan mumbled, already reaching for the pen. "Wonderful. Then initial here and sign here." Elara watched, her heart a cold, hard drum, as Seraphina grabbed the pen. Her signature was a vicious, triumphant slash of ink. She slid the paper to Lorcan. He signed. Then they slid it to Elara. Elara picked up the pen. She looked at her son. She looked at the woman who had ruined her life. And as the camera recorded every second, she signed away her home. The change was instantaneous. The ink was barely dry on the fake deed when Seraphina's entire demeanor shifted. The honey-sweet, caring daughter-in-law vanished. The boss was back. "Well," she said, stretching as the notary packed her bag, "that's that. Now, Elara, about your things. We really need to get this house in order." Elara, still in her armchair, her heart thumping, just looked at her. What do you mean, dear?" "I mean," Seraphina said, walking over to the mantelpiece, "all this junk." She picked up a small framed photo of Elara and Ansel on their wedding day. "It's just so dated. We're going to repaint. Grayish. And this is going." She tossed the frame onto the sofa. "Seraphina," Lorcan yelped, "what are you doing?" "What I should have done months ago," Seraphina said. "I'm in charge now, Lorcan. We own this house. We have the paper to prove it. And I say she's not confused. She's a liar." Elara's blood ran cold. She knew. You recorded us, didn't you?" Seraphina said, tapping the digital picture frame. Elara's eyes went wide. How? "Please," Seraphina scoffed. "My toddler knows that nanny cam model. Did you really think I was that stupid?" She unplugged the camera and tossed it, crashing, onto the hearth. You and your little lawyer friend, Agnes. Non-hostile cohabitation. Really? You thought that would stop me?" Lorcan was white as a sheet. "Seraphina, what is this?" "This," Seraphina said, "is checkmate, Lorcan." She pulled her phone from her pocket. "While you were signing, I was, recording too. My way." She played a video. It was of Elara, earlier. "I'm so confused.
all the time. I'm not well. I don't trust myself." The audio was crystal clear. Seraphina stopped the recording. Her smile was terrifying. "You see, Lorcan, your mother just admitted on camera that she is, what's the legal term, not of sound mind. She's confused. She's scared. She's not well. Any document she signed, well, it's suspect. But this," she waved the video, "this is proof." "Proof of what?" Elara asked, her voice shaking. This was not the plan. "Proof," Seraphina said, "that she needs help, that she can't be trusted with her own decisions. Proof that she is a danger to herself. Proof that we, as her loving, concerned caretakers, need to take control. For her own good." Lorcan finally understood. "Seraphina, no, you're talking about conservatorship," Seraphina said, tasting the word. "I called my lawyer. With this video and her, erratic behavior, throwing our things out, locking us out of rooms, it's a slam dunk. We'll have control of everything. The house, the new bank account, all of it, by the end of the week." Elara stared, her mind a blank, howling void. She had been outplayed. Seraphina had seen her trap and laid a bigger, better one. "And you?" Seraphina said, turning to Elara, her face a mask of pure, triumphant hatred. You will be going somewhere safe, where you can't hurt yourself." She meant a home, a nursing home. Elara was going to lose everything. "Get your things, Elara," Seraphina ordered. "You're moving into the guest room. I'm taking the master suite. It's time I showed everyone who's the boss." And in that moment, Elara looked at her son, Lorcan, who was just crying, silent, useless tears. Elara had lost.
Elara was defeated. She felt the cold of the floor seep into her bones. She had been so clever, so sure of her plan, and Seraphina had destroyed it with a single brutal and brilliant move. She had used Elara's own false surrender against her. She was going to lose her house, her money, her freedom. She looked at Lorcan, her son, who was sobbing into his hands. He was useless. He was a child. And she was... "Wait," Elara said. Her voice was a croak. Seraphina, who was already mentally redecorating, turned. "What now? You said..." "I recorded you," Elara said, her mind starting to whir. "And you recorded me." "So?" Seraphina snapped. "So," Elara said, her voice getting stronger, You have my confession of being unwell, and I have..." Her eyes landed on the broken nanny cam on the hearth. It was smashed, but the SD card, Elara whispered. "The what?" "The card," Elara said, a sudden wild hope surging in her chest. She lunged for the broken frame. "Oh, no, you don't," Seraphina shouted, grabbing for it too. But Elara was faster. She ripped the back off the plastic frame. The tiny black SD card was still in its slot. She clutched it in her fist. "What's on that, Elara?" Seraphina sneered. "More proof of our non-hostile agreement. It's useless. My video proves you're incompetent. That entire signing is void." "Is it?" a new voice said. The front door was open. Agnes DeWitt stood there, flanked by two policemen. What is this?" Seraphina stammered, her face instantly pale. Lorcan looked up, his face a mask of terror. I'm calling my lawyer," Seraphina shrieked. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds," Agnes said, stepping into the room, "of attempted fraud, conspiracy, and, well, just plain stupidity." The poison pill, Seraphina," Elara said, standing up. She wasn't frail anymore. She was furious.
The one I read, it's invalid. You just said null and void if there's conflict. We're in conflict. You played yourself. Oh, you are so stupid, Elara said, her voice dripping with contempt. You didn't listen, did you? You never listen. She looked at Agnes. Agnes nodded and played a recording. On her phone. What? The camera was a decoy, dear. The real recording was the audio-only bug I put under the coffee table, the one that streamed live to my phone. And it says, Agnes's voice continued, the agreement reverts immediately to the original owner. You had to sign it to activate the non-hostile clause. And the second you threatened me, you admitted your plan. You breached the contract. You voided your ownership. Seraphina's mouth opened and closed. But my video, she's incompetent. Officer, Agnes said, if you'll listen to this. She played the audio from the bug, Seraphina's voice cold and clear. Conservatorship. All have control of everything. We'll have control by the end of the week. You'll be going somewhere safe. The officers looked at Seraphina. Ma'am, one officer said, stepping toward her. It was Lurkin. Tell them she tricked us. Lurkin just looked at her. He saw her for the first time, not as his wife, not as the mother of his child, but as a monster. He slowly stood up, walked over to his son's playpen, and picked up Evander. He didn't look at Seraphina. He looked at his mother. Mom, I'm so sorry. Elara just looked at him. The pity was gone. Get out, Lorcan, she said. But Mom, take her and your son and get out. Seraphina was arrested for conspiracy to commit fraud, for elder abuse. It stuck. The audio was everything. The house was quiet. Lorcan left with Evander. He was going back to his own apartment in the city. He was divorcing Seraphina. Elara was alone in her house. It was filthy. It was empty, but it was hers. She walked into her bedroom. On the dresser were the pieces of her music box, the splintered wood. She picked up the pieces. She sat down. She was 68 years old. She was tired, but she was in charge. She was the boss.